But
he's the handsomest guy there.
He was very good looking.
I can see why you decided to work on that.
Oh, I had to.
Can you point him out?
No, but
Right
the
there.
picture I have, he's
John Salaway.
there by it's a restaurant that's serving buffet dinners, and he's standing there with his red jacket on and his white pants and everything else. He did that also. He was just a hard-working guy. I found that picture lying somewhere, and that's why I put it into
That's great. I've never seen that one before.
Looks a lot like Kevin, doesn't it?
Yes, he does. I see a lot of
You
the
met
other guys.
Kevin?
I see a lot of the other sons in him too, though.
This is him here.
And Aunt Diane too. I think he looks a lot like Aunt.
Oh yes,
Diane.
yes, definitely.
And Uncle John. I think
And
a lot of
John.
Uncle John.
Yeah, you can see a lot of the kids in him.
Oh my gosh, I can see my dad. I could see a lot
You know,
of my
I'll
dad.
keep on looking for that picture because that was nice to have. But that typifies the work that he did, you know.
Yeah.
And then when he got into splicing, there was a lot of overtime, so he just worked. for
So we
himself.
could do that only.
What was there? It was more of a story about he bought a car and he test drove it.
Oh yeah. The surprise.
And the funny part, how stupid you are, we go to take the car, and it was right near a parkway, you know. And he said, listen, you want to take it anywhere? Get on the parkway, drive it, be fine. And it was. So we got home, found out it didn't go in reverse. How many times, if you ever bought a car, did you ever try it in reverse?
No. But I bet you taught every one of your kids to make sure they tried it in reverse.
But isn't that amazing?
Yes.
Yeah, that
That
was terrible.
Can you imagine not telling somebody about that?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
We kept that while, no, we'll go around the block. We don't have to park there. So we didn't have to back out.
Oh.
He was a good man. I say that not in hindsight, but.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. As a good Irish Catholic, you raised 10 children in a neighborhood with many Irish and Italian families. We've heard a story about one time your kids were complaining that the neighbor's lasagna always smelled so good, and they never got lasagna. What was your response?
I made Irish lasagna. I really did, and they thought it was Irish lasagna. It really was small pieces of potatoes you fry, then you throw in a lot of scrambled eggs. And we took over, because the people in the back, nice family, they always had, the grandmother lived 2 houses down. Irene, I got lasagna for you! And then she would come down, go through, oh, here's another thing about my husband, go through the fence and over there. We had a fence that went all around the side and the back because we had a pool. And then I wanted to have the fence all the way around. And Dad says, you can't do that. So he built the fence on right after the back, here, here, and here. So Mrs. Trapani could walk around here and go to the back to visit her daughter.
Wow.
Because otherwise she would have had to walk all the way around the block.
That
you can't
says
do
so
that.
much about him.
Oh, you don't need that. Yes, I do need that. No.
Wow.
But I went along with it because it was such a sweet thing to do. This way, Marge. She yells, and they used to yell back and forth all the time. I'm coming over. Well, he wouldn't see her going all the way around the block and coming back that way. So for 4 or 5 years, we had that fence up right in the middle of my yard.
Wow.
So how did the kids like the Irish lasagna?
They loved it. They loved it.
What-
Irish lasagna, Mike!
And then what happened the next night when you served eggs and potatoes?
I
Did
never
they put
did.
two and
I
two?
never did. Never one without the other. I cover up whatever I do. I never did. Yeah.
What about there's something where Uncle John was really good at pegging the powdered milk? Is it?
Oh yeah.
When you have 10 children, you don't always buy bottles of milk because they drink them so fast. So there used to be Carnation would have a great big box. It would be dry milk. Now the thing of it is, without anybody watching, 6 tablespoons in, put some water, mix it up, and pour more water inside. Everybody else, another 9 children, you have to cool it up, put it in the refrigerator. We're going to eat now. I'll get the pitcher and pull it out. Mom, is that fake milk? And nobody would drink it then. Yeah.
And he spread the word. That was John that did
That was just, he'd say it right out to everybody. Is that fake milk? That's difficult. Yeah, you're bringing up things that I had almost forgotten about. That's true. Yeah.
Shortly after your husband died, you rented a Winnebago and took the kids to Missouri for your son Mike's college graduation. Can you tell us why that trip was so important and what message you were trying to send to the kids?
My husband died in 73. In 74, my mother died. Oh, it was a little more than a year. And that was very difficult. Naturally, it was difficult. But I mean, I did all the functioning things. I say to this day, which I'm very proud of, Dad died in October. I had a big Thanksgiving dinner in November. Christmas that year, the tree that never went up before Christmas Eve, and doing all of that. And every night, every Christmas Eve, 10 stockings I would buy for all of them. For all of them. So, I mean, I did all the things that I should have done, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But going, I think with Michael, I think had Dad been alive, it just would have been Dad and I flying out there, you know, going that. And I think I was trying to do something because I was functioning, but I knew that the kids were upset about, you know, don't hurt Mom, or Mom's upset or something like that. So I really wanted to do something, not only to see the graduation, but I thought what a great idea it would be, rent a Winnebago. And they had them right up the block. And John was here that day. Well, let's take a look at it. We went up there. It was ideal. So I think we decided that then and there, get it. And I really think that was a day I healed, I think, because I wanted to let the kids know we're going to be okay. We just, I didn't know that intentionally, except I think the kids sensed that. I wanted to let them know I can do these things, you know, and that wasn't the biggest thing in the world. So that meant a great deal to me, and we did that. We went out there, and in the middle of the graduation, they announced the Salaway family. We all had to stand up and get a big ovation and everything. Yeah, so that was just something I think sometimes, you know in yourself, you're doing all the right things, but there's something just not quite missing. That
Mm-hmm.
I really felt I healed that day. That we got it, got the kids back, and got home safe. So, yeah, that meant a lot.
How old were you when Dad died?
44.
Was there ever a time where you doubted, like, whether you could do it? Like,
No, that's a funny, no. And I say this, it never bothered me. What should I say? It never was a concern that I wasn't going to make it. First of all, we had mortgage insurance. I'm a big proponent of that. Nowadays, if you don't have that, what's that other insurance?
Mortgage insurance?
No,
you think?
no.
Homeowners insurance?
I think they still have that.
Yeah.
I think they
No,
still have.
I'm not talking about that.
Oh.
When you
Oh,
went up-
life insurance?
No, term insurance. Term
Oh,
insurance.
term
As a
life
matter of fact,
insurance.
I went to see my financial advisor in the bank a couple of weeks ago about for something. And he was, you know, talking about how you're doing and stuff like that. And I said, I worked with a lot of nurses that, intelligent, that said, why get term insurance? You have it for 10 years. If you don't die, all that money is wasted. And I said, well, what about car insurance?
Yes.
What about house insurance? So I told him that I said that. And he pulled up a chair and he says, well, you sit next to me. He said, the kids today don't understand that. There's nothing wrong with term insurance. You know what I'm talking about, Richie?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
Yep.
what it's worth. Because really the first maybe 10 years or maybe the first 15 years when you're raising your family, job situation, not knowing whether you can handle it and everything, I can't understand why people don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we were very lucky. We had mortgage insurance, so my mortgage was paid for. No, I didn't know what I was going to get, and we were going to do it. We were just, that was where it was going to be. Yeah. So it, and oddly enough, we never got a pension from the lighting company.
Oh, I didn't
Because
realize
it's ridiculous. Dad was 45 and worked there 23 years.
Oh my God.
You had to be 55 and worked there 23 years.
Wow.
And I think I told you this story. My brother-in-law, who's John's brother, nice man and everything, but they didn't have any children. Well, he found out maybe 15 years after Dad died, one of his friends had passed away, and Ken said to me, Marge, John got insurance, didn't he? He was 45. I said, pension? Got insurance, he had life insurance. I said, yes, but he didn't get the pension. I can't believe that. And he was always up in the air. That was true. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
What difference does it make? If you worked there 23 years, but because you were 45, nothing at all. So,
And that would be through the company and not the union, is that right?
no, through the company. Yeah, the
Okay.
union wasn't that strong.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I think my dad tells stories about sometimes he has to work with unions, but he says one of the benefit he said is the week after Grandpa, your husband, died, the oldest son John had a union card. Does that jive?
Well, it's not exactly.
Okay.
It took a while to do that. I had to
Okay.
be a phone call I had to make
Okay.
to ask. They didn't do anything for me. And that's the sad thing. They didn't do anything for me. When Dad died, maybe a week or so, they came, and Dad had, life insurance was 2 years. So he said, now I can either give you in a lump sum, or I can give it that you would get so much money every month, if you want to do it that way. And I said, no, I'd rather take it a lump sum. He says, well, 10 children. I said, listen, if I go down, 10 go on top of me. That's not a concern. We'll handle it. Do you know, up until Kathleen got married was the last $1,000 I had when Dad died.
Oh wow.
Left from that lump sum payment. Wow.
So now that's what I'm saying. It sounds sad, and I don't want you to go away with that. There's certain things that are sad, but there's certain things that were very good.
What parts of being on your own, like, did you have to learn and did you dislike the most? I mean, you had to learn about, maybe you did the finances
I did.
before Dad died, but were there what parts of being on
Well, I'll
your
tell
own?
you the truth. I never felt like I was a widow. That may sound silly to you, but something had to be done. Either I would do it myself, or I had sons that were very good, and they would help me. My sister was wonderful. My sister would come out lots of times and, help me with different things. But I never felt like I was a widow, which I think some women do. Well, what can I do? I'm a widow. Well, I brought 10 children into the world. I'm going to take care of them. And I always felt that way. When Dad died, Brian was only 5 years of age. And again, I would say sometimes I concentrate on that because Tricia was 7. Andrew was 9. So, and I had 2 kids in college at the time. So it sounds terrible, but I had a lot of faith and it worked out well.
And it's a great family.
It really is.
It's a great family to be in.
All right, so then we were going to ask some questions, kind of like general questions, looking forward. Well, the first question I had is that, basically, as we've heard, you've had a lot of different, very varied different experiences in your life. So if you had a chance now to speak with yourself at 18, what do you think you'd realize has changed a lot about your views? In other words, your opinions or the way you viewed the world at 18 and now, what's changed the most, do you think?
I'll tell you something, a little addition to that. When I was about 8 years of age, we would go to church and there'd be like 3 or 4 women in the back of the church, generally in black, doing the rosary all the time. And I remember I was, I think, 8 at the time, and I said to myself, I'm not going to live my life that I'm going to have to do that when I'm old. In other words, I'm not going to do anything that I'm going to have to pay back for or something like that. So it just made such an impression upon me because years ago, they would see women and they would have the veils and whatever it is over their heads and everything else and everything. And I used to say, my God, what did you do that you have to say the rosary like that, So I remember doing that. So, and I think I kind of felt that way all through my life. That I didn't want to ever do anything that I would regret. I'm not saying I didn't make mistakes. I'm sure that I did. But I remember, so anything I said at 18, I would say I made that decision maybe when I was about 8 or 9. I would never live my life that I would have to say the rosary like crazy before I was going to die.
But nothing strikes you like in terms of just the way you looking back on it, you're like, man, I really was way off on that. Like I thought differently about this when I was younger, and now I see that I was very mistaken about thinking about something like that.
No, I was never wrong, Richie.
Okay.
No, because when I was 18, I was working, and I would say that I had a good life.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there was, things that weren't the way you would like them to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'll tell you a real sad story. The day I got married, there was a hurricane.
Oh yeah.
Yes, it was terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible out.
The
My father's
date?
in the kitchen, drunk. He had come home. Now, my brother got married the year before. My sister got married 6 months before. And he wouldn't drink until the wedding ceremony was over. He was drunk at 2 o'clock that morning. So he knew it was going to be a tough time. So anyway, he's sitting in the kitchen. All my bridesmaids are there, all set, all dressed up to go and everything. It's over and done with, so don't get upset about it. But so I go into my father and I say, Dad, you have to get dressed. Why would... It always was, why should I? He always wanted to be reassured there was a reason for this. I said, Dad, I'm getting married. Yeah, getting married, yeah. Another 5 minutes later, Dad, will you please get dressed? We have to go. Mom's waiting, blah, blah, blah. So finally, at the last minute, I said to him, if I have to get down on my knees and beg you, I will. Will you give me away? Now, my brother was only 2 years older, and he could have walked me down the aisle. But to this day, I would have regretted it if I did that to him, because my father was a very sensitive person, and I think lots of times when you ask him to do something, he has to be like reassured. But anyway, then he did, and we'll show you the picture sometime. So then we get married. No, then what happened is crazy rain outside. I had, years ago, they used to have these great big fur coats, make-believe fur coats. So it was time to go out to the limousine. They wrapped my big gown all around me. Then they put on the big coat. Then he put cellophane wrapped me all around.
Oh my God.
And he's carrying me out, and he trips and falls into the car.
Oh no.
Couldn't move. It's all right, Marge, I'll be right in there. Then he had to go around the front of the car and help me up. So it's funny, too, because once we got married, I didn't look at those wedding pictures for months. It was just an horrible thing. My sister had a fight with my cousin at the reception. My brother-in-law's leg went out, so when Dad and I are in the car, Vinny's leg is over the back seat. So every time my daughters get married, I said, now listen, the married day is not going to say what the rest of the wedding is going to be. And I've often said, well,
That's good advice.
no, what I've often said, the wedding was terrible, but the marriage was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was it, yeah.
That's the lesson there.
Yeah.
So now kind of, these are questions sort of, so right now, 2013, you are mother, grandmother, or great-grandmother to 39 people. So you'll probably have a lot of descendants as the generations continue on and on. So
Well, some of them. We're waiting. No, I didn't.
Don't rush.
So here we're going to ask you, imagine that you're giving advice to your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren, great Salaways way down the line. Imagine you're giving them advice as they enter important stages of their life. So the first question we would ask is, what advice would you give them as they became newly married?
And I've thought about that a lot. And I think I would say this isn't a part-time job. This is forever. There's days you may not like each other, and whatever the story is. But don't go into it thinking, well, if it's not that bad, I can leave it. You can't. Most of my children got married in church. They made vows, for better or for worse. So that's the way I've often thought about that. Don't go in there thinking, we'll see what happens. It's a permanent job.
I remember in the summer you gave me advice, and Courtney, that no matter how mad you are, you need to always kiss at night, even if it's through gritted teeth. And she's called your words out several times.
Well, you know why? It's not, I mean, that he can kind of joke about, but if you don't, then it becomes another day. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is so wrong. Whenever you have a problem, you're mad at each other. Well, what does it hurt to say, I messed up, I'm sorry? Mm-hmm. And that other person accepts it. Mm-hmm. Saying I'm sorry doesn't mean now they have to get down on their hands and knees and blah, blah, blah. And I really believe that. I've done that to my own children, too. Just get past whatever it is, because it's amazing how much madder you're going to be the next day. Mm-hmm. And the next day. Mm-hmm. Well, if he comes to me, that kind of nonsense. Mm-hmm. This is like a full-time job, you know. You should be treated that way. So I'm glad to hear that you're doing that. Now, who was the gritted teeth, you or him?
What advice would you give these young Salaways as they become a parent for the first time?
Okay. You've heard this. You can't spoil a baby with love. So when they cry, find out what they're crying about. If they feel like, if they're upset, what does it take to hold them and just comfort them? If you do it 3 times an hour, well, so what? Is there something the matter? Mm-hmm. And I've always felt that way. Don't tell somebody would say, you're going to spoil that baby. And I would always say, you can't spoil them with love. Mm-hmm. And I do believe that. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's times that they cry, but don't say, but by that time, you know what kind of a cry it is or whether they really need something. But that's my advice to that.
Mm-hmm. And then also, what advice would you give them if they found themselves facing challenges with their children?
And I've had a couple of challenges. And the kids would come to say, I guess, Mom, you must really hate me. And I would always say, right now I don't like you, but I never stopped loving you. I said, could I stop loving my right arm? Got hurt. You're attached to me as much as my right arm is. And I really believe that. Oh, there's sometimes you really don't like them. Really. Mm-hmm. None of you, I'm sure of it. But I do, and as long as they know that you will always be there. Don't be pussyfoot and say, well, it was somebody else's fault and blah, blah, blah. No, you did wrong. Mm-hmm. But don't ever think I stopped loving you. Mm-hmm. And that's what I do.
What advice would you give someone as they're entering the golden years of their lives?
I think I would say that you're entitled to have the golden years. If you lived your life the way you should, then when the golden years come, you should enjoy it. And take care of yourself. You taking any notes?
I think I'll...
He's got What are some of the biggest blessings of your golden years? I'm thinking about the story when you came home from the hospital.
It was almost 5 years, 4.5 years ago, I had my knee done. And then I went to a rehab that was absolutely terrible. Got C. diff while I was in there.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
So it was really bad. And then I came home, and I said, I felt like my house wrapped its arms around me. Mm-hmm. I was so glad to be home, and it was just unusual circumstances. I must tell you about this C. diff. I had it, and went back to the hospital twice. Finally, the last time I was there, what was the name of that? Trichoome, whatever. I forget what his name was. He was in infection control. So when I was going home, he said to me, "If you do what I tell you to do, it's very infectious. It's really bad." Mm-hmm. He says, "I will get you out of this." I took that medicine for 72 days. Mm-hmm. First week every day, second week every other day, and 3 hours. It was unusual because I've had friends that had C. diff that were back and forth in the hospital so many times. but I don't know if you know anything about that. It's oxycodone, but it's the generic brand of it, and I had to take that. But it did work. After 72 days, I was taking it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Because they tried something else earlier, and that didn't. You know, they tried some
Yeah.
intermediary,
Yeah.
and that
Right,
didn't.
right. No, but as I
So-
say, I have had other people that had a real bad case of that and it didn't work out too well. And I think it was because of I got it because of the way that we were treated in this rehab. But then I had my finger broken about 3 years ago, and I went to the one in West Hampton. And as it was, her grandfather was also in there. So it was just a nice place to be, really. You know? Matter of fact, I just told Tricia, the doctor would come around. Well, tell me a little bit about yourself, Margaret, and you're here now, blah, 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 blah. And I said, you know what, I tell all my friends, I'm spending the summer in West Hampton.
I remember that Mike was making plans to have our Thanksgiving dinner in the community room there. They had a great big table. We would all fit.
That was night and day. That was really a nice place. Yeah.
I know, thank God.
It's funny to talk about. I was in with this other woman who had 2 children that she was always fighting with and everything. I left before this woman. Her name was Maybe or something, Mabel. And when your father came to pick me up, he brought her a bouquet of flowers. I said, "Oh, he said, nah, maybe she feels bad that you're leaving." I thought that was really a nice thing to do. Yeah. Okay.
And then I guess back to this, if we're thinking of these Salaways and the year 2200 or something, would you give them just some, are there any final, like, general words of wisdom that you would give them? Like, if you wanted to give a message to Salaway descendants 200 years from now, like, life lessons or advice?
You know, I had very good friends in my Rosary Society, and of course they would be, "Marge, how can you do it, blah, blah, blah." And what I have often said, and I hope that I can pass this down, as long as the good outshines the bad, you can do it. There's got to be bad things, but don't forget the good things that are happening, and they're always there for you. And I've held that to for a long time. I felt that way. Yeah.
Well, that's all I...
No, I have 2 stories. Oh,
Good. All right.
they're kind of funny. And they're before I met my husband, okay?
Uh-oh.
All right. It was funny. On Thursdays, I would be the usherette up in the loge. And that was good because I could see the movie. Not too many people bothered me.
That's like the balcony?
Well,
You know.
$1 more if you paid for it. Whatever it is, that's where I sat.
Okay.
It's just stood there. And I noticed there was always somebody came up, this guy, to talk to me and stuff like that, you know, and not much of a conversation, but we're just talking about it. So aside from that, there was a guy named Eddie. Now, I'm 16 at the time, and so was he. And he was an usher. And I knew he had a crush on me. We'd sometimes sit and hold hands and stuff like that. Well, one time, I'm upstairs watching the movie, and all of a sudden somebody comes up, "Marge, you better come down here, quick." What had happened was Eddie was just coming on the 7 o'clock shift, and he saw Norman that used to stand out there. And he said to Norman, "Why are you standing next to my girlfriend?" And I got to, "Will you tell me what to do?" Well, they had a fight, and they had to call the police.
Whoa.
She's a Jezebel.
What's going on?
And you said you were shy? Did you say you were shy? Okay, something's not matching up here. Oh, that's a good
That
one.
was a good story. Now, the other thing is really kind of funny. I'm a Eucharist minister. No, you all know. Give communion out and stuff like that. So sometimes I worked in MICU and CCU. On Sundays, I would be in charge of giving out communion.